Alrighty, guys, time to wrap it up for today, this Tuesday, February 18th. And yes, one scary spot, right? The 2 o'clock hour. The 2 o'clock hour had us freaking out for a second, didn't it? So, and we were talking in the last update, we were talking about general like sideways action, and we were down here supports holding at the 6130s and pretty much waiting for uh, some more weakness, basically, an attempt to take this lower. And boy, did we get that. Turned out to be just a big fake out, like a big scare to the downside, because they ran this like a crazy right down here into the 6110 or 20 area, and then just stalled. Nice retest failure to like get long against, and then right back up again. So this is actually pretty good retest failure setup. Now, when it's happening, it's tempting to hop on the short side of this. But if you wait for this thing to either take it lower or fail, you have the shot, because this is the time you have to make up your mind if you want to do the retest failure or potentially look for a continuation to the downside. Um, Watching it as it started trading lower, first of all, pullback, not much to do. If you want to get short on that pullback, getting short against that mean of the mode is pretty aggressive. I would not do anything on this swing. I would be looking for them to take it lower, see if there's actually some continuation, because one big bar like this could be just nothing. It doesn't mean anything more than that the algos are like stepping into it, or maybe a piece of news came out or something to that effect. But it's a 2 o'clock hour, right in smack in our green stripe here, where you usually could get a change of direction. So big move to the downside, no continuation, and as they start trading back down here to the low end of this, you don't want to sell into this because you're selling right into a support area. So you don't want to get short right there going into the lows. You want to wait for that kind to either head lower. They started taking out the low, but couldn't quite make it, and or a failure. And this point, you can see how it starts failing. And at this point, I would have to say that it's pretty darn hard to trade this, because if you were trading this move on that way up, you had to get in long around 23s or maybe down here at the mode at the 20s, depending on how aggressive you could get. Uh, and then you sat in that for a bit, and then yeah, you got lucky because you just popped back up pretty hard. Sometimes they don't do that. Sometimes they just go sideways. But watching it, you have it when it starts trading higher, and you can wait for this bar to close and this third bar to start moving before you get in. You had to get up a little bit, give up a little bit of trade location for that trade to even have a shot. 23 down to the 18, so at least a 5 point stop to be on the right side of this. And if you were looking for a short continuation trade, hopefully you didn't get short. And if you did, your stop should be outside that rotation and you just get shaken out of that trade. But this stuff like this is always difficult to trade because you get caught up in that momentum to the downside, and it's easy enough to try to hop on the short side just to find yourself getting caught in that trade. And the only way it saves you there is to have your stop right above this rotation and then not touch it. If you can have it up here against the initial balance high, or low, sorry, and maybe a little bit higher than that. Depends on how aggressive you want to be. But if you're sitting there trying to repair this trade, you'll just be stuck in a really bad trade, and you'll still be stuck in it. So range bound we are going into the overnight. So far support held, and unless they start selling off into the close, I'm going to just start off range bound. Looking at this as going a sideways action. So pretty much range bound trading around this high volume area. That's kind of the way I would start it. So looking to buy weakness against the 61, at this point, the 27s, against the 17s, down here to the 6110s for rotations back up. And at this point, potentially getting short against the 6145s, the 55s for rotations back down. So these two areas of resistance, at least the 45 seems to be pretty good at this point. So it could potentially try a short trade against that one. But starting off range bound, so far, no real directional move happening today. It's just pretty much sideways. And going into tomorrow, the news for tomorrow, we got housing starts and permits at 8:30. We have mortgage apps before that. At 10 o'clock, we get Atlanta Fed business inflation expectation and e-commerce retail sales. Not sure if any of those going to make a big change. 20-year auction at 1. Fed minutes at 2. So the Fed minutes could be interesting. That's 2 o'clock tomorrow Eastern time. So that would be worth paying attention to. That could be a little bit volatility around that time frame. So that is the ES to get started, starting off range bound. If anything, I would favor the long side, given the capital given the capital flow and given that they haven't really taken this lower. But it's not the given what happened today, not the super strong long bias, basically a range bound to get started. Looking at the Nasdaq and the bonds. So bond market is drifting lower. I guess the name for this. Drifting lower. Did take out the 1420s and starting to retrace this to the downside. So at this point, a little bit concerned. Let's see. We'll see how they develop in the overnight. But looking at the bond market, they're heading back down to this high volume area at the 114s. Not crazy, not the absolutely crazy outside the range. They're basically trading in this between these two high volume areas, the 116.10s and the 114s. So going back and forth there. So right now it looks like they're trying to head lower, and we'll see how far they're going to take it. All right. But I would start off range bound, maybe a slight bias to the downside on the bonds and see if they can take it lower. If they trade up above the 1422, just take off that short bias. So that's the bond market to get started in the overnight. Nasdaq, big kind of messy trading on the Nasdaq. They've been kind of volatile to the downside. Also a big scare here at the 2 o'clock hour. Ran it hard to the downside. I figured, okay, here we go. Support held at the 120, at the 110 to 20s. And nice retest failure setting up there too. Again, same dynamic as on the ES. Easy enough to get caught on the long side. And it's something where you just have to look for a potential retest failure type setup or continuation. But for continuation, I would not be looking at selling into this low. If you try to get short here on that 116 level, you're really pretty freaking close right into this support area. So you selling into support is just never a good idea. So I would just sit here on the sidelines and leave it at that. So see if that retest failure works. If they were taken out this low and started heading lower, maybe with a little bit of a vengeance, that looks to me at that point, I would consider this as being more of a follow-through type of a trade and look more for that and more for continuation to the downside. But one big bar like this, you need to get some confirmation, some continuation on that one. And as you can see, if you give it a little bit of room, you realize that, okay, there's no continuation, actually retracing it. And so that's the dynamic. Easy enough to get caught in that. If you were trying a short trade, you were trying it as this guy starts trading higher. That's when you try that trade. That gives you the best trade location you can get. So you're looking for the balance bar. And if you think you want to take the short trade, you're trying to take it as they start taking this higher. Because that's usually how they fake you out. They start moving higher and then fail miserably. You may have to fade some heat on that, and you may be flat out wrong, but that's the best way you can enter it. Entering it when it starts moving lower is what I usually do and get caught in it every single time because the momentum just stops. And then you go back and forth a bit. And sometimes you're right and then keep going. Sometimes you just realize that you're on the wrong side of it. So trade location, key thing. So make up your mind. If you want to try a short trade, try it when it starts trading higher. If you want to try a long trade, try it when it starts taking this lower. And just try to get the best trade location you can. But I'm going to start off range bound on the Nasdaq as well. Just going sideways at this point. They're still up in this upper area. If you look at the Nasdaq, they're pretty much reverse retesting this support area we talked about this morning. And that's pretty straightforward. It's a nice reverse retest. So far it's holding. And if it holds, we may be in a good spot to potentially take this back up again. All right. And we'll see how it develops. Not much news to drive the market this week, so it's a lot of things could happen. Finally, oil and gold. And I only had that one trade on the Nasdaq earlier on. Did I show you that? Let me show you that real quick. So you don't think I just didn't do anything today. I just did one trade. I did one trade on the Nasdaq. That was when they were heading lower on that pullback. Tried to get good trade location, get short. Had a nice short trade going there for a bit, and then they squeezed it one more level higher, and I just got out of it, and then that's my $10. So one contract trade on that one. That's it. And then finally, oil and gold. Gold is stalling, as you can see. They took it a little bit higher up to the 54s, and that's it. So that's all they could do. And looking at capital flow on gold, You can see they're still up here against this upper area. And it looks like they're trying to take it higher. So I would start off with a slight bias to the upside to see if they can take this higher. And if not, probably looking for retracement back to that 45 level. But at this point, they're up against that 55 resistance area. So I would look for them to extend past that and then hop on the long side. At this point, I would be looking for a short against the 54s for rotation back to the 45s. We'll see how the overnight pans out, but that's kind of the early dynamic in the overnight. And if they keep going about 54, 55, we are heading higher. So that's kind of where we are. So gold, crazy gold. Oil. Today we're trading the April expiration and pretty much sideways action, range bound trading on oil. Not much going on, I had to say. So at this point, yes, start off range bound. I would start off with a slight bias to the upside, see if you can retest that 72 level, maybe take it out. It looks to me like they're building value up here, so I would be looking for a short against the 72, maybe an attempt to take it up, and a short for a move to the downside. And if they take out the 72, I stay on the long side if that happens. So that's the way I would start off on oil. So just one trade in and out on the Nasdaq, a quick one for 10 bucks, and that was it. Back to the ES, and given the day, it's kind of an interesting day with all these dynamics going on, especially this little hullabaloo at 2 o'clock. So that's why I have this green stripe there, because something directional changes happen in this time frame. Sometimes you get some activity like this, so it's always good to gives you a heads up that yeah, something may be happening. Alrighty, I will wrap it there for now, guys. So I will see you back at bright and early tomorrow morning, and then we'll take it from there. Ready, guys. Later.